Where did the cash actually go? How did almost $1 million in family earnings just vanish into thin air? While the wives were struggling to scrape together their grocery money, a stunning new court directive has opened up the books on Kody Brown's finances, and what was revealed left even Robyn stunned. This isn't another dirty chapter in the sister-wives drama. This is a legal earthquake. A judge has formally decreed that Kody has to disclose the full extent of his secret wealth. And for the first time, his diligently concealed secrets are being pulled into the light. Sources close to the filings obtained by investigators for the exclusive report reveal the court is convinced there are at least 3 secret accounts, one containing more than $900,000 that never showed up on the family's official budget. These aren't rumors shared on fan sites. This is sworn testimony. Evidence stamped by the court. It couldn't come at a worse time for Kody. After decades of complaining that the family was broke, after blaming financial difficulties for relationship tension and broken vows, the revelation of these secret accounts presents a very different picture. A marriage where the patriarch is possibly stealing money away and leaving his wives to suffer. And the courts finally had enough. The judge was direct in his words. Mr. Brown is hereby ordered to make full disclosure of all accounts, assets, and holdings within 30 days. For Robyn, wife long regarded as Kody's closest confidante, the news has come as nothing short of catastrophic. Several sources close to the case indicate that she was left in the dark in court, mouthing to her lawyer as the judge read from the order. The look on her face was one of shock. But how did it come to this? What compelled a court to step in and ask questions? And what is in those accounts that Kody struggled so intensely to conceal? Stick with me, because what you are about to hear isn't only about lost money. It is about power, betrayal, and the demise of the Brown family as we thought we knew it. Before we dig into the financial breakdowns, the secret payments, and the inside testimony that blew the case wide open, subscribe and make sure you are following. This story is still developing, and every new filing is bigger than the last. If you don't want to miss the next installment, subscribe now, because in this courtroom saga, the stakes aren't only financial. They're personal, and for the first time, it seems like Kody might be running out of places to hide. What if I told you the truth about Kody's finances wasn't just buried, it was intentionally buried? Guaranteed inside sources report that the first red flags were raised almost 2 years ago, way before this latest court order. Christine had already wondered if something was not quite right. She reportedly frequently asked, how come Robyn's children always have anything they want? Yet the rest of us are informed the family can't pay for necessities. It wasn't a suspicion. It was a pattern. Every time Christine or Janelle raised concerns about missing money, Kody would redirect, claiming that TLC's payments had dropped or that unexpected expenses were draining the family budget. But now, thanks to subpoenaed bank records, that story is unraveling. Remember when Jezebel's surgery was delayed because the family couldn't afford it? Or when Janelle's kids were told they'd need to take on extra jobs just to cover college tuition? Around the same time, one of Kody's accounts, set up in a limited liability company that none of the wives knew anything about, was quietly accumulating deposits in tens of thousands that settle in. While Jezebel was pleading with her dad to put her health first, and while Janelle was running credit cards up to buy groceries, Kody was quietly funding a secret stash. The psychological damage was horrible. Court documents reveal that Christine cried during her deposition, recounting the day she finally figured out that the money had been there the whole time, only hidden from view. I felt like we'd been lied to for years, she explained to the court. We were told we had nothing, but he was accumulating a nest egg for himself and Robyn. The other wives, however, are more wounded. Imagine dedicating decades of your life to a marriage, making sacrifices, sharing all resources, only to discover that the man who had vowed one big family was secretly siphoning funds. And the court is not dismissing these feelings as mere family drama. The judge specifically listed the emotional exploitation of financial dependence as one of the motives for full disclosure. In simple words, Kody's behavior might not only be money misbehavior, it might vent into abuse. Also for Robyn, who never said she knew what was going on with the cash. The news has been embarrassing. Courtroom observers reported she appeared visibly shaken, holding her attorney's arm as Christine's testimony was read aloud. Undefined whether or not she was aware of the stories, her credibility as Kody's closest friend is now being questioned. This isn't just a money case anymore. Undefined It is about trust broken, marriages busted, and years of sacrifice that all of a sudden seem to have been for nothing. But the question of the day is, how much money are we talking about? And where did it all come from? Undefined, stick around, because in the next part, we'll break down the legal and financial documents that reveal the staggering size of Kody's hidden fortune, and why the judge says there's no escaping disclosure this time. The core of this case isn't speculation. It is concrete evidence. For court records filed in Coconino County, detectives tracked at least 3 undisclosed financial accounts directly linked to Kody Brown. Each was opened under a different LLC names, such as Brown Holdings, Coyote Legacy, and Kodiak Enterprises. To the naked eye, these could appear as typical business entities. But to the court, they represented deliberate evasion. The judge's directive was plain as day. Mr. Brown is required to account for the total of all money maintained in any business entity he controls, whether or not such money were made known to his family. And what about the figures? They're astronomical. One account indicates $320,000 in deposits over a span of 4 years. The majority of these deposits arrived in quarterly amounts, suspiciously consistent with TLC's payment plan. The second account contained approximately $540,000, primarily in wire transfers labeled as consulting fees. The court is now demanding proof of where those payments originated. And the third account, though smaller, still raised alarms, with a balance of nearly $90,000, allegedly set aside for tax purposes. Altogether, we're looking at close to $950,000. Money that was never disclosed to Christine, Janelle, or Meri. What makes this even more incriminating is where the money was spent. Bank records indicate expenditures on purchases from high-end retailers, travel agencies, and, perhaps most damaging of all, mortgage payments on Robyn's Flagstaff mansion. Consider that for a moment. As Christine was begging the family to contribute towards Jezebel's surgery, and as Janelle was selling jewelry on the internet just to make enough money, Kody was silently shifting almost $1 million to enjoy a lifestyle only he and Robyn enjoyed. The judge did not hesitate. It is unconscionable, the court said. That money derived from joint family income would be hidden in a way that deprived some members of the family of essential needs while disproportionately benefiting others. In law, the charges boil down to fraudulent concealment and unjust enrichment. Fraudulent concealment due to the fact that Kody reportedly kept these accounts hidden from both his wives and the court. Unjust enrichment due to the fact that the money went directly to benefit Robyn's household while the others were deprived of it. Analysts who have examined the filings indicate this may bring with it more lawsuits, neither only monetary fines, but potential civil fraud lawsuits. That is how severe this has gotten. And it all comes back to the central issue. Kody is no longer in charge of the story. He is under court order to turn over every receipt, every wire transfer, every shred of evidence that shows how this fortune was accumulated and where it ended up. The walls are closing in, and for the very first time, the tightly controlled image of the patriarch is being torn apart line by line, word by word, and if the money is real as it seems, the next question is even larger. Where did it come from? Exactly. Was it TLC? Was it side deals? Something even more outrageous? In the next section, we'll reveal the smoking gun, the one piece of evidence that connects these hidden accounts directly to Kody, and why Robyn could no longer deny the truth once it was exposed. In every courtroom drama, there's a moment when the evidence is so clear, so undeniable, that the entire atmosphere shifts. For Kody Brown, that moment came when the prosecution introduced what they called Exhibit G. From first glance, it was just a straightforward PDF, a computerized bank statement gleaned from one of the shadow LLCs. But when the judge thumbed through the pages, the courtroom erupted into shocked silence. Page 4 revealed a wire transfer, dated only weeks after Christine had declared she was quitting the marriage. The figure, $150,000, the recipient. A joint account in Robyn's name. The room gasped. Even Robyn herself appeared taken aback, shaking her head, mouthing the words, "I didn't know," but that wasn't the end of it. A series of such transfers appeared, $50,000 here, $75,000 there. All traced back to accounts, fully under Kody's control, and flowing directly into Robyn's household, associated assets. The judge's reaction was swift. This amounts to prima facie evidence that money was knowingly withheld from the common fund. The transfers will be placed under order of restitution. Christine, who sat just a few feet away, shut her eyes and breathed deeply. To her, this was the long-awaited vindication. Janelle, practical as ever, wrote wildly in her notebook, as though computing just how much could now be recovered. And Meri, court reporters, report that she just gazed at Kody, a look unreadable on her face, but her eyes overflowing with years of betrayal now, finally exposed. The effect of Exhibit G cannot be exaggerated. This wasn't hearsay, or guesswork, or an embittered ex-wife telling tales. This was cold evidence, straight from the bank itself, to prove that Kody had routed shared family money into accounts that benefited only him and Robyn. The prosecution christened it the Red River Transfers, a symbolic title intended to emphasize how family money had been transferred down one path, enriching one household at the expense of all the others. And when Robyn's lawyer attempted to argue that she had no idea the transfers were taking place, the judge handed down one of the most devastating lines of the whole case. Ignorance does not absolve you of benefit. Whether you knew or not, you lived in the mansion those funds maintained. For the first time, Robyn was silenced. The tears that previously won public sympathy now elicited only doubt. Fans outside the courtroom started chanting Christine's name, their voices resounding across the courthouse steps. Kody, his eyes wide with shock, bent forward and argued furiously with his lawyer. But the harm was done. The smoking gun had gone off, and it was impossible to stuff the bullet back into the chamber. From this point on, the story changed. No longer was this a matter of family feuds or ugly divorces. It was about financial betrayal, supported by evidence so powerful even Kody couldn't talk his way around it. And the fallout, that was only beginning. In the next part, we'll explore the immediate reactions, the anger, the humiliation, and the crumbling of the carefully constructed Brown family image, both inside and outside the courtroom. The courtroom had barely settled from the shock of Exhibit G before the fallout began to ripple through every corner of the Brown family dynamic. Christine was the first to react. For years, she had been dismissed as bitter, accused of exaggerating her grievances, or told she was walking away from the family without good reason. Now, with the evidence projected on the courtroom screen for all to see, she finally had proof. She leaned over to her attorney and whispered something, her face breaking into a brief but unmistakable smile later. As reporters swarmed her outside the courthouse, she said simply, "The truth has a way of finding its way out. I just wish it hadn't taken this long." Janelle's reaction was less emotional, but no less powerful, known for her level-headed pragmatism. She sat upright, arms crossed, her pen scratching steadily across her notepad. According to insiders, she was already drafting a plan to petition the court for her rightful share of the assets. For her, this wasn't just about justice. It was about finally securing financial stability after years of living paycheck to paycheck under Kody's control. Meri, often seen as detached in recent years, surprised many by breaking her silence. As the evidence was read, she looked directly at Kody, her voice low but clear enough for those nearby to hear. "You lied to us all." It wasn't anger so much as resignation. A quiet acknowledgement that the man she had defended far too often had betrayed them all. And then there was Robyn. Courtroom witnesses describe her as visibly trembling, her face a mixture of shock and devastation. She reached for Kody's hand, but he kept his arms folded tightly, refusing even that small gesture. For years, she had been portrayed as the favored wife, shielded from the struggles the others endured. Now, in a cruel twist, she was the one left most exposed. Outside the courthouse, the public reaction was swift and merciless. Fans gathered with signs reading "Justice for Christine" and "Where's the money, Kody?" Social media erupted, with hashtags like #KodyExposed and #RobynKnew trending within hours. Even TLC couldn't escape the fallout. Comment sections flooded with demands for answers, with viewers questioning whether the network had known about the secret funds all along. For Kody, the humiliation was total. His carefully cultivated image as a provider and patriarch lay in ruins. No amount of deflection could erase the image of that bank statement, with his signature authorizing the transfers. The judge adjourned for the day with a warning. "Mr. Brown, this court expects full cooperation moving forward. Any attempt to obstruct or delay disclosure will be met with immediate sanctions." As Kody gathered his papers and shuffled out of the courtroom, his wives stood apart from him.
each one no longer orbiting around his authority, but instead standing as individuals, vindicated by the truth. But the fallout didn't stop at hurt feelings and public embarrassment. The legal consequences of these revelations could reshape the family's future forever. Because now, the question wasn't just how much money Kody had hidden, it was what the court planned to do with it. In the next part, we'll look at the possible consequences: restitution orders, asset seizures, and even the possibility of criminal charges. The storm has only just begun. The revelations in court weren't just shocking for the family, they carried very real legal weight. Judges don't order the disclosure of hidden assets lightly, and in Kody's case, the consequences could reach far beyond embarrassment. The first and most immediate issue was restitution. Christine and Janelle's attorneys wasted no time in filing motions demanding that the hidden funds be divided fairly among all parties. Their argument was simple: these assets had been built on the backs of family income, contributions, and sacrifices, and it was only right that they be shared. The judge appeared receptive, hinting that asset redistribution would be a likely outcome. Then came the matter of seizure. Because the funds were concealed in offshore accounts and funneled through multiple entities, the court flagged the transfers as potentially fraudulent. That meant government agencies could step in, freezing accounts until the investigation was complete. If proven, Kody could lose not only access to the fortune but also face steep fines and penalties for attempted concealment. But the most chilling consequence was the possibility of criminal charges. If prosecutors decided that Kody had willfully hidden assets during ongoing divorce proceedings, he could be accused of fraud, perjury, or even tax evasion. That would turn a messy family dispute into a federal case, with prison time suddenly on the table. For Robyn, this reality landed like a gut punch. Court insiders revealed she broke down in private after the session, pleading with her attorney. "I didn't know about any of this. I thought our future was secure." Yet, in legal matters, ignorance rarely serves as a defense. If her name appeared on any of the accounts, she too could be implicated. The financial stakes were equally devastating. With TLC already reconsidering its relationship with the Browns, income streams were drying up fast. Add to that the legal costs of multiple lawsuits, and the empire Kody had tried so desperately to preserve was now collapsing under its own weight. And there was another complication: public perception. Once fans lose trust, rebuilding it is nearly impossible. For years, the Browns had marketed themselves as a family struggling against the odds. But the discovery of secret millions painted a very different picture. Viewers now felt deceived, and in the court of public opinion, Kody was already guilty. The judge scheduled another hearing to review the forensic accounting, warning Kody's team that the court expected absolute transparency. If additional assets surfaced, the penalties would only grow harsher. So where does this leave the family? Christine and Janelle are positioning themselves for long overdue justice. Meri has finally spoken out, no longer defending Kody. Robyn finds herself caught between loyalty and fear. And Kody, once the undisputed head of the household, now faces the possibility of losing everything: his fortune, his freedom, and what little trust remained. But perhaps the most explosive part of this saga wasn't the hidden money itself. It was what the documents suggested about how the fortune was built, and who may have helped Kody along the way, that, as you'll soon hear, could unravel not just the Browns' financial story, but their entire history. To understand why this revelation cuts so deeply, you have to go back years, long before the court filings and the divorces. Kody Brown didn't just stumble into hidden wealth. According to financial documents and testimony, the seeds of this fortune were planted during the very height of the family's fame. When Sister Wives first aired, the Browns presented themselves as a family struggling to make ends meet. Viewers saw them pinching pennies, worrying about mortgages, and scrambling to provide for their many children. And while those struggles were real in some ways, behind the scenes a different story was taking shape. Contracts with TLC brought in far more money than the family admitted on camera. Sources close to the network claimed Kody negotiated side deals, taking advances and bonuses that never made it into the collective family account. Instead, those funds were quietly rerouted into shell corporations registered under obscure names. And it wasn't just TLC money. Court records suggest Kody invested in land under pseudonyms, flipping properties in Las Vegas and Flagstaff, while publicly complaining about financial hardship. Even more surprising, there are whispers that he used fan donations and speaking engagement fees, money meant to support the family's mission, to fund personal ventures. The most damning revelation came from Exhibit G transfers made during the same period, when Christine was pleading for funds to pay for Isabel's surgery. While Christine publicly begged the family to prioritize her daughter's health, Kody was quietly moving tens of thousands of dollars into accounts Christine never even knew existed. For Robyn, this history was devastating. She had defended Kody for years, insisting he carried the financial burden for everyone. But the documents told a different story. While she enjoyed the security of a spacious home, Christine and Janelle were left to scrape together money for essentials. Meri, who had once been closest to Kody, found herself re-examining years of financial decisions. How many times had she been told there simply wasn't enough to support her dreams or business ventures? How often had Kody deflected, claiming the family was broke? Now, those excuses looked like part of a calculated plan. As these details came to light in court, the judge grew visibly impatient. What started as a family feud was now beginning to look like a systematic scheme, a web of deception spun over a decade, leaving wives and children in the dark. But perhaps the most unsettling question wasn't how Kody hid the money. It was why. Was it pure greed, a need for control, or was there another motive entirely, one tied to secrets the family had never made public? In the next part, we'll explore the motives driving Kody's actions and how those motives threaten to fracture what remains of the Brown family once and for all. As the courtroom drama deepened, one question hung in the air. Why would Kody go to such lengths to hide this money? For some, the answer seemed obvious. Greed. Kody had long projected himself as the family patriarch, the provider whose word was final when it came to finances. By controlling the money, he controlled the narrative. The wives' dependence on him wasn't just emotional or spiritual, it was financial. And nothing cements authority like making sure everyone else has to come through you to survive. But the documents suggested something deeper. Several transfers coincided with key turning points in the family's history. When Christine first voiced her unhappiness, large sums vanished into accounts outside the collective budget. When Janelle questioned Kody's decisions about Coyote Pass, more money disappeared. Even Meri's infamous catfishing scandal lined up with suspicious withdrawals, as if Kody had been bracing himself for fallout by building a personal safety net. To the wives, this pattern was chilling. It meant Kody's fortune wasn't just about hoarding wealth, it was a strategy, one that allowed him to keep each wife financially vulnerable, while he built a lifeboat for himself and Robyn. Robyn, for her part, looked shaken as these patterns were laid out in court. Whether she knew about the accounts or not, the implication was clear. She had been the beneficiary of Kody's secret maneuvering. Her spacious home, her security, her relative insulation from the financial struggles of the other wives. All of it was made possible by money the others never saw. Christine's attorney didn't mince words. This wasn't about providing for the family. This was about consolidating power. And that hit the wives hard, because for years they had defended Kody publicly, even when privately they questioned his judgment. They had carried the emotional and financial burdens, often in silence, believing his leadership was at least rooted in sacrifice. Now they were forced to reckon with the possibility that it had always been about control. The motives, in other words, weren't just financial. They were psychological. By keeping the money hidden, Kody ensured that leaving him would always come with a price. And for a time, that strategy worked. Christine admitted as much in a quiet interview after court, saying, "I stayed longer than I should have because I was afraid of what I'd lose. Now I know the truth. I already lost more than I realized." The judge's reaction spoke volumes. "This court is deeply concerned," he said. "What we're seeing here suggests not just financial mismanagement, but deliberate concealment for personal advantage." With motives now on full display, the Brown family's story shifted from one of marital breakdown to one of calculated betrayal. And for the children, who had always been told their father sacrificed everything for them, the truth was even harder to swallow. But the biggest bombshell was still to come, because in uncovering Kody's motives, investigators stumbled across evidence that someone else may have helped him move the money, and that revelation threatened to widen the scandal beyond the family itself. In the next part, we'll explore who might have aided Kody in hiding his fortune, and why their involvement changes everything. As shocking as Kody's hidden accounts were, the deeper investigators dug, the clearer it became he didn't do this alone. The complexity of the transfers, the offshore accounts, the shell corporations, the property flips, suggested a level of financial sophistication that went beyond Kody's known abilities. This wasn't the work of a man juggling checkbooks at the kitchen table. Someone had helped him. Court documents hinted at the involvement of a financial advisor who had been on the Browns' payroll during their Las Vegas years. While the family had always described this advisor as a consultant, the paper trail showed he had quietly established limited liability companies under Kody's control, some of which were later used to funnel money out of family accounts. Even more surprising was the appearance of a familiar name in the records, a former TLC contractor. Emails revealed discussions about creative accounting designed to protect Kody's income from network scrutiny. While nothing directly tied the contractor to fraud, the implication was clear. Someone known inside the production machine may have looked the other way while Kody siphoned off funds. And then there was the biggest shock of all. Robyn's signature appeared on at least 2 of the disputed accounts. That didn't prove she understood the scope of what Kody was doing, but it did tie her legally to the scheme. When her name was read aloud in court, she broke into tears, insisting, "I thought these were just savings accounts for the kids. I didn't know." The wives exchanged glances. For Christine and Janelle, who had long suspected Robyn received special treatment, the revelation was a bitter confirmation. For Meri, it was something else entirely, a sign that Robyn, whether knowingly or not, had been the partner Kody trusted most with his financial secrets. The judge ordered a full forensic audit, expanding the scope of the case beyond Kody's personal finances. Every LLC, every trust, every business deal tied to the Browns was now under review. Public reaction exploded. Headlines screamed, "Did TLC help hide Kody's millions?" And Robyn implicated in hidden fortune scandal. Talk shows debated whether Robyn was a victim or a co-conspirator. Online forums lit up with speculation about who knew what and when. For Kody, the walls were closing in. His carefully guarded network of secrecy was unraveling, exposing not just his decisions but the complicity, or ignorance, of those closest to him. The question was no longer just how much money he had hidden. It was whether the people around him would now turn on him to save themselves. And as the court prepared for its next hearing, the stage was set for the most dramatic showdown yet. Would Robyn stand by Kody, or would she finally break ranks to protect herself? In the final part, we'll look at the breaking point, the moment where alliances shift, trust is shattered, and the truth threatens to destroy the Browns' legacy for good. The tension inside the courtroom on the final day of hearings was unlike anything the Browns had faced before. By now, the hidden accounts were exposed, the accomplices identified, and the wives' loyalty had been pushed to the limit. What remained was the question of accountability. The judge wasted no time. In a stern, deliberate tone, he laid out the findings. This court has determined that Mr. Brown knowingly concealed assets from both his spouses and this court. The extent of the deception is staggering. Restitution will be ordered, and additional penalties are under consideration. Christine and Janelle clasped hands, a rare public display of solidarity that underscored their shared victory. For them, this wasn't just about the money. It was about validation. That all the years of gaslighting, dismissals, and financial uncertainty had not been in vain. They had been right to question him, and now the law stood on their side. Meri, who had wavered between silence and reluctant defense for years, finally found her voice. Looking directly at Kody, she said softly but firmly, "You didn't just betray us, you betrayed yourself. You'll never be the man you claim to be." But the most dramatic moment came from Robyn. For much of the proceedings, she had sat by Kody's side, visibly shaken but steadfast in her loyalty. On this day, however, something shifted. When asked by the judge if she had any statement, she broke down. "I trusted him. I signed what he put in front of me, but I can't defend him anymore. I won't." Gasps filled the courtroom. For the first time, Robyn publicly distanced herself from Kody. Whether it was an act of self-preservation or genuine heartbreak, it marked the end of their united front. Kody, once the proud patriarch, sat alone. No wife reached for his hand. No family member offered comfort. His empire of control had crumbled not with a bang, but under the relentless weight of truth. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy was at full tilt. Fans cheered for Christine and Janelle, holding signs that read, "Justice at last and truth wins." Online, hashtags like #Kody Falls and #Robyn Breck Silence dominated social platforms. Even former supporters now spoke of betrayal, their disillusionment cutting as deeply as any legal ruling TLC. Under immense public pressure, announced an internal review of its contracts with the Browns, hinting that the show's future was in jeopardy. Sponsors quietly pulled back. The once lucrative platform that had launched the family into fame was dissolving before their eyes. For the children, the fallout was even more painful. Many had stayed silent throughout the proceedings, but as the truth spread, questions about trust and legacy weighed heavily. What kind of father hides money while preaching sacrifice? What kind of example had been set? As the judge's gavel struck for the final time, one thing was clear: the Browns' story would never be the same. The family that had once embodied unity under pressure now stood fractured, its patriarch disgraced, its matriarchs vindicated, and its future uncertain. And so the narrative closes, not with triumph, but with transformation. The hidden fortune was revealed. The lies were exposed. The balance of power shifted forever. The Browns' legacy, once carefully scripted for reality television, was now rewritten by the only script that truly matters: the truth. Even after the judge's final ruling, the story of Kody Brown and his hidden fortune didn't simply end. In many ways, it was just beginning. Reporters camped outside the courthouse for days, hoping to catch any glimpse of the family. Christine and Janelle emerged first, smiling cautiously, their attorneys beside them. When asked if they felt vindicated, Christine replied, "This isn't about winning, it's about being free." Janelle nodded, adding, "Now we can finally build a future without secrets." Meri, who had often been the most elusive in public, surprised everyone with a heartfelt statement on social media. She wrote, "The truth may hurt, but it also heals. I choose healing." For longtime fans, it was a rare glimpse of the independence she had been struggling to claim for years. Robyn, however, remained silent. Her only appearance came days later when she was spotted leaving a lawyer's office, visibly shaken. Rumors swirled about whether she would face charges or whether she was preparing to distance herself from Kody once and for all. Her silence spoke louder than any statement. And what of Kody? For the man who once relished the cameras and the spotlight, the silence was deafening. He issued no statement, appeared in no interviews, and remained hidden from the public eye. Those who saw him described him as withdrawn, his trademark bravado replaced by something far less certain: fear. Meanwhile, the children began to process the fallout. Some publicly supported their mothers, praising their strength. Others retreated from the chaos, refusing to be dragged further into a scandal not of their making. The fractures between siblings mirrored the fractures of the marriages that had raised them. TLC made its move soon after. In a carefully worded statement, the network announced the suspension of future filming, citing the need to review ongoing developments. For fans, it was confirmation of what many had suspected. The Brown family's television chapter had come to an end, yet the fascination with their story didn't fade. Books, podcasts, and documentaries began circling, eager to capture the rise and fall of America's most famous polygamist family. Where once Kody had controlled the narrative, now it was in the hands of journalists, critics, and most importantly, his ex-wives. In the end, the legacy of the Browns was not defined by their unity, but by their unraveling. The hidden fortune had been revealed, the power dynamics upended, and the truth laid bare for all to see. But perhaps the most important chapter was not written in court documents or television scripts. It was written in the resolve of Christine, Janelle, and Meri, the women who chose freedom over fear, truth over deception, and a future over a crumbling past. In the end, the court's ruling did more than expose a hidden fortune. It stripped away the illusion that had defined the Browns for over a decade. What began as a story about family, faith, and unity had become a cautionary tale about secrecy, control, and betrayal. Christine and Janelle emerged not just as survivors but as victors. Their willingness to confront the truth, even when it was painful, set them free. For Christine, it was the ultimate validation of her decision to walk away years earlier. For Janelle, it was a chance to finally reclaim the independence she had quietly been building toward. Meri, long cast as the silent supporter, found a new voice. No longer bound by loyalty to Kody's version of events, she stepped into her own story, one defined not by scandal but by resilience. Robyn's place in the narrative remains the most complicated. Whether she was complicit or deceived, her association with Kody's schemes left her reputation in shambles. Once positioned as his greatest ally, she now faces the hardest choice of all: remain tied to his downfall or separate herself completely. And Kody, once the confident patriarch, stood alone, his fortune revealed, his authority dismantled, his legacy rewritten. For years, he had fought to control the family's destiny, to dictate its finances, its moves, even its image. But the truth, once uncovered, proved stronger than any plan he could devise. Outside the courtroom, fans and critics alike debated what it all meant. Was this simply the fall of one man, or was it the inevitable collapse of a system built on imbalance? The Brown story had always been more than just reality television. It was a mirror reflecting the dangers of unchecked control and the resilience of those who dare to break free. As the dust settled, one truth became clear: money may have been the weapon, but secrecy was the real betrayal. And once secrecy is destroyed, there is no going back. The Browns' chapter on reality television may be closed, but their story lives on. Not as the tale Kody tried to script, but as the one his wives and the truth itself finally forced into the light. And so, the saga ends not with Kody's triumph, but with his unraveling, his hidden fortune exposed, his authority shattered, his family no longer in his shadow. In the end, it wasn't the millions that mattered, it was the truth, and the truth, once revealed, changed everything.